New minimum wage may push states into bankruptcy. Nigerian Governors Forum says. Can you imagine? How can you say that new minimum wage will push Nigeria into bankruptcy? What about the humongous security votes that you're getting, your salaries and allowances? What about the ministers? What about the executive arm of government? What about all those money that politicians are stealing? The legislators are assigning to themselves. Have they ever owed themselves salaries or allowances? Okay, the lawmakers, National Assembly members are rebuilding their houses, they are buying SUVs, and I think they voted 21 billion naira for rebuilding Vice President Shetima's house in Abuja, the VP's house. So why not reduce the cost of governance to be able to take care of the people that are doing the job, that are producing the money that are sharing? These people, these governors that are part of the problems that we have in this country, I'm telling you. Let's dive into the details to see exactly their posture. As the nation awaits the new minimum wage promised to be sent to the National Assembly by President Bola Tinubu, the burden of implementing the minimum wage may make many states bankrupt. Can you imagine? The Federal Executive Council, at its meeting last Tuesday, stepped down a memorandum on the report of the tripartite committee on the new minimum wage to allow for more consultations among the federal and state government on one part, the private and the labor unions on the other part. Can you imagine? So they want to meet with the government, the governors and the state government first, and then come and meet with the labor unions. So last Thursday, Tinubu met with the governors at the National Economic Council meeting, chaired by Vice President Kashim Shettima. The meeting, which was expected to deliberate on the national minimum wage, was, however, silent on whether or not it considered the issue. Can you imagine? So also last Thursday, the Southern Governors Forum released the communique of its meeting held in Abeokuta, Ogun State, with the governors asking that each state should negotiate minimum wage with its workforce. So the labor unions have, however, reacted to the stance of the Nigerian Governors Forum over their overbearing influence on the minimum wage negotiations. So in a document titled Analysis of State FAAC, that is the FAAC inflows and state expenditure profile of the Nigerian Governors Forum Secretariat, the Nigerian Governors Forum report warned that implementing the new minimum wage could push states into bankruptcy due to increased recurrent expenditure. Can you imagine? So according to the report, the burden of recurrent expenditure already left Abia, Ekiti, Gombe, Imo, Katsina, Kogi, Oyo, Plateau, Sokoto, Yobe, and Zamfara in deficit in 2022. So the report predicted that if the recurrent expenditure increased by 50%, 30 states would fall into deficit with only 10 remaining financially stable. Can you imagine? So the tripartite committee's recommendation of 62,000 naira minimum wage would necessitate over 100% increase from the current 30,000, potentially leaving only a few states like Anambra, Bayelsa, Borno, Ebonyi, Gombe, Imo, Jigawa, Kaduna, Lagos, and Rivers with positive net revenues based on 2022 fiscal data. Now go and sleep. So a net revenue is a reduction of recurrent expenditure from the total revenue of the state. And when it is positive, it means a surplus, but when it is negative, it means a deficit. Also, the total revenue of state is calculated from the monthly revenue from the Federal Account Allocation Committee, that's FAAC, internally generated revenue, IGR, aids and grants, and constituency development funds. So according to the document cited by the Punch, Abia, with an employment size of about 58,621 workers, pays 5.837 billion naira every month as wage monthly. So Anambra has a 20,541 employment size and pays 1.824 billion naira monthly as wages. So apart from 894 million as pension obligation and 579 million for debt servicing. Bayelsa boasts of 48,213 workforce, paying 5.802 billion naira monthly, with 1.194 billion as pension obligation and 3.535 billion as debt servicing, totaling 10.532 billion naira as total recurrent expenditure monthly. So Benue has about 13,366 workers in its workforce and pays 2,000 and pays 2.04 billion naira as monthly wage, 76 million for pension. Can you imagine? And 64 billion for debt servicing, totaling 66 billion naira monthly. So they just calculated all the states and put all of them here. But is that what we want? That is not what we want. The Assistant General Secretary of the NLC, Chris Onyeka, in an interview with the News Agency of Nigeria on minimum wage and its implementation, claimed that many state governors were flouting the Minimum Wage Act and listed the states of Abia, Enugu, Bayelsa, Delta, Nasarawa, Gombe, Adamawa, Niger, Sokoto, Imo, Anambra, Taraba, Benue, and Zamfara states as defaulting. So reacting, the Enugu State Chairman of the TUCA, Ben Asogwa, said the state commenced payment of 30,000 minimum wage and its consequential adjustment in February 2020 for state government workers, while local government workers and primary school teachers were paid 25% consequential adjustment. Can you imagine? So he, however, said Governor Peter Mba, on assumption of office, approved the full implementation of the 30,000 minimum wage for both the local government workers and primary school teachers in the state. So the Punch reports that the Zamfara State Governor, Dauda Lawal, announced during a meeting with the leadership of the labor unions that the state would begin payment of 30,000 minimum wage effective June 2024. Okay. So the issue here is, the problem I have with the state government is that they are giving excuse with recurrent expenditure, servicing of loans, and payment of salaries and all of that as recurrent expenditure. Now they're trying to prove to us that without, with the approval of the minimum wage 62,000, that are going to struggle. What are they talking about? That is the question. Why will you struggle? So the question is that if you don't get federal government account allocation committee, they don't send money to you, or if you don't have any money from federal government, you can't generate something from your state. So governors cannot look inwards, okay, and see the potentials of the state: solid minerals, liquid minerals, tourism services, and all other things. There's nothing they can do. Art and culture, education. There's nothing they can do to improve the economy of their state. It's only when they get money from the federal government that is when they spend. That is only what they're looking for, and that's only what they're waiting for. Apart from the fact, when you say IGR in the state, the only thing they look at is Agbero Motor Park going to collect levies from drivers and taxi drivers and from market. That is all they know. How to explore and exploit the state potentials, they cannot. Solid minerals are there, you can't move anything. Electricity is there. Other forms of technological development, manufacturing is there. You can't look inwards to create something. Agriculture is there. You can't look inwards to do something. That is very bad, I'm telling you. A complaint of recurrent expenditure is the reason why they will not be able to pay the minimum wage. As if we are to run a perfect confederation, a decentralized system of government, where the state government will fund itself and pay a percentage to federal government, so they will survive. No wonder they don't want decentralization. They don't want restructuring, because restructuring, some of them are very lazy. They are not creative. There's nothing in their head to put together to help the state move forward. They don't want restructuring. That is it. So whatever the state government is saying is unacceptable to me, frankly speaking. They have to pay that money. They just have to pay that money. They have to pay that money. So somebody said in the comment section here, the governors of the 36 states should stop all forms of their stealing and looting of their state funds and drastically reduce the cost of governance so that there could be money to pay living wages to their workers and still have money to develop their own states. Exactly. My own is that they should look at the natural resources of the state. So where would the civil servants take the money and spend? Is it not within the country? Then how can that make the state go bankrupt? When the money is circulating within the economy, most governors loot and stash millions in foreign accounts, which usually make money scarce in the economy, of course. Somebody is saying, if massive looting of state treasury by their governors didn't force their states to bankruptcy, paying living wages cannot bankrupt them. Our governors are not sincere. And that is true. The massive looting they are looting has not put the state in a bankruptcy. It is the paying of large salaries and living wages to workers that will put them in bankruptcy. Let them stop stealing and everything will be okay. That is it. And that is it. So there are more comments here, but thank you for listening. Let's have your comment. That is what we have for the state governors. They just have to repent.